The Fall Guy was never just about action. It was about risking everything for entertainment. It made Hollywood look glamorous, reckless, and untouchable. But decades later, the truth behind those smiles finally surfaces. Illness, addiction, sudden deaths, and silent disappearances followed the cast, and by the end of this video, you'll discover just how many of them are no longer here. Lee Majors as Colt Sievers. Lee Majors was born on April 23, 1939, in Wyandotte, Michigan, United States. At 42 years old, he played Colt Sievers, the Hollywood stuntman who secretly worked as a bounty hunter, in The Fall Guy, 1981. The role gave the series its identity, turning stunt work itself into the engine of suspense and danger. That confidence was forged under his loss. His father died in a workplace accident before his birth, and his mother was died in a car crash when he was still a toddler. Raised by relatives in Kentucky, Majors grew up carrying emotional absence instead of security. When he later appeared in The Big Valley and The Ballad of Andy Crocker, the weight behind his calm intensity came from years shaped by silence and endurance. Marriage placed him under a different kind of pressure. His relationship with Farrah Fawcett, beginning in 1973, unfolded under constant public scrutiny as both became major television stars. While Majors carried the $6 million man, Fawcett's fame surged even faster, creating distance driven by schedules, attention, and expectation. By the time The Fall Guy entered its prime, the marriage had already fractured, ending in divorce in 1982. As his career expanded, his body absorbed the cost. A devastating back injury in his youth had already ended his football ambitions, and years of physically demanding television roles added further strain. These accumulated pressures forced Majors to slow down after decades of momentum, marking a shift from constant production to selective appearances and long-term preservation. Today, Lee Majors is 87 years old, living a measured life while remaining connected to fans through conventions and retrospectives. He spends his time golfing, maintaining his health, and revisiting his legacy through The Fall Guy and The $6 Million Man. With an estimated net worth of $15 million, his journey stands as a portrait of survival. Fame earned, paid for, and carefully carried into old age. Douglas Barr as Howie Munson. Douglas Barr was born on May 1, 1949, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, United States. At 32 years old, he played Howie Munson, the sharp-witted, loyal stuntman partner, in The Fall Guy, 1981. His character grounded the series, balancing risk with humor and keeping the show emotionally accessible. That balance came from struggle in his childhood. Leaving Iowa for California meant entering the industry without connections, facing early financial pressure, and long periods of uncertainty. Barr fought for recognition through smaller roles before landing The Fall Guy, later appearing in films like Deadly Blessing and 3 for the Road. Marriage added weight rather than relief. Barr married Claire Kirkconnell in 1984, while The Fall Guy demanded constant production. Balancing a long-running series with family responsibility created quiet strain. As the show ended, Barr chose stability over chasing diminishing roles, redirecting his focus behind the camera. That transition tested his identity. Moving from actor to director required rebuilding credibility in a different hierarchy. Barr directed episodes of Designing Women and later television films, proving adaptability while stepping out of the spotlight that once defined him. Now, Douglas Barr is 77 years old, living a semi-retired life in California. He focuses on independent directing projects and runs Hollywood and Vine Cellars, a venture built after television stepped back. With an estimated net worth of $2 million, his story closes not with disappearance, but with control. Heather Thomas as Jody Banks. Heather Thomas was born on September 8, 1957, in Greenwich, Connecticut, United States. At 24 years old, she played Jody Banks, the skilled stuntwoman and Colt Sievers' closest partner, in The Fall Guy, 1981. Her character brought credibility and danger to the series, proving that the show's action did not belong to men alone. That strength was shaped under pressure early on. Growing up in a wealthy but demanding environment, Thomas faced high expectations that left little room for vulnerability. The constant need to succeed created insecurity that followed her into adulthood. When she later appeared in projects like Zapped and Cyclone, the intensity behind her screen presence reflected a drive formed long before fame arrived. Success came fast and turned destructive. During her years on The Fall Guy, Thomas became addicted to cocaine, a struggle hidden behind pin-up fame and television stardom. Her first marriage to Alan Rosenthal collapsed between 1985 and 1986 as addiction tightened its grip. Even as she continued working, the cracks became impossible to ignore. The breaking point arrived in 1986. Thomas was involved in a serious car accident that left her with severe injuries to both legs, forcing a sudden halt to her momentum. Rehabilitation followed, along with a decision to step away from acting's chaos. She redirected her focus toward writing, publishing the novel Trophies, and engaging in political activism, choosing survival over visibility. In 2026, Heather Thomas is 69 years old, living a private life in Los Angeles. She devotes her time to writing, philanthropy, and selective public appearances, far removed from the spotlight that once consumed her. With an estimated net worth of $5 million, her story stands as a rare Hollywood reversal. Markie Post as Terry Michaels. Markie Post was born on November 4, 1950, in Palo Alto, California, United States. At 32 years old, she played Terry Michaels, the sharp, fearless bail bondswoman, in The Fall Guy, 1982. Her role strengthened the series in its later seasons, adding authority and wit that reshaped its ensemble dynamic. The path to that moment was not immediate. Raised in an academic household, Post pursued acting against quiet resistance and industry skepticism. She began behind the camera on game shows before earning small on-screen roles, often overlooked or underestimated. Appearances in Buck Rogers in the 25th Century and the A-Team reflected years of persistence before recognition arrived. Marriage unfolded alongside rising demand. Post's second marriage to Michael A. Ross began in 1982, just as her schedule intensified. While their relationship remained strong, the workload from The Fall Guy and later Night Court left little room for rest. Her breakout as Christine Sullivan on Night Court brought fame and Emmy nominations, but also relentless production pressure. Health ultimately rewrote the timeline. After years of sustained work on television, Post was diagnosed with cancer and fought the illness for nearly 4 years. Even as her body weakened, she continued appearing in projects and remained engaged with her family. Sadly, she passed away on August 7, 2021, in Los Angeles, California, at 70 years old, following her long fight with cancer. She was surrounded by family, leaving behind a legacy built on resilience and warmth. With an estimated net worth of $12 million earned through decades of television success, her career ended not in decline, but in dignity. Ann Pflug as Samantha Big Jack. Ann Pflug was born on May 2, 1940 in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. At 41 years old, she played Samantha Big Jack, the sharp, commanding bail bond agent in The Fall Guy, 1981. Her character added authority and wit to the early seasons. That poise was built through early pressure. Raised in Winter Park, Florida, where her father served as mayor, Pflug grew up under public expectations and constant comparison. Frequent school transitions and the push toward broadcasting at university forced her to adapt quickly and perform under scrutiny. Long before Hollywood, she learned how visibility could become both opportunity and burden. Her career breakthrough came suddenly and narrowly. After gaining recognition as Lieutenant Dish in MASH, Pflug found herself repeatedly cast as the glamorous supporting presence rather than the lead. Roles in films like Catlow and Where Does It Hurt reinforced her visibility but limited her range. By the time she joined The Fall Guy in seasons 1 and 2, she was already confronting the quiet frustration of being known, yet constrained. Marriage coincided with professional uncertainty. Her first marriage to Chuck Woolery ended in divorce in 1980, closing a chapter marked by emotional strain and public attention. In 1988, she married Charles Stuck Young, and stability followed, allowing her to step away from the industry's volatility. As leading roles faded, Pflug shifted toward voice work, hosting, and later selective appearances that offered control rather than exposure. By 2026, Ann Pflug is 86 years old, living peacefully with her husband and occasionally lending her voice to projects she chooses carefully. With an estimated net worth of $5 million earned through decades of acting, television hosting, and voice work, her life reflects a deliberate retreat, leaving the spotlight not in defeat, but on her own terms. Terry Kiser as Nick Trainer. Terry Kiser was born on August 1, 1939, in Omaha, Nebraska, United States. At 42 years old, he played Nick Trainer, a recurring calculating fixer within the stunt world, in The Fall Guy, 1981. His appearances added tension and unpredictability, reinforcing the show's darker undercurrents beneath its action surface. That instability marked his early years. Frequent family moves disrupted any sense of permanence, forcing Kiser to adjust repeatedly to new environments. That uncertainty followed him into adulthood, shaping his determination to master performance as a form of control. Training at the Actors Studio and early stage success, including Fortune and Men's Eyes, gave him discipline before Hollywood offered recognition. Career success arrived with a double edge. Kiser amassed more than 140 roles, but comedy became both gift and trap. While Weekend at Bernie's turned him into a pop culture icon, the role's absurdity overshadowed his dramatic range. Even as he appeared in films like Friday the 13th Part 7 and series such as Hill Street Blues, casting narrowed rather than expanded. Marriage unfolded alongside relentless work. Kiser married Sylvie Marmot in 1987, and they had one child before divorcing in 2004. Balancing family life with constant television and film commitments created strain that mirrored the instability of his earlier years. Now, Terry Kiser is 87 years old, still acting selectively and respected as a veteran character performer. He continues to work in film and voice projects, carrying decades of experience into smaller but meaningful roles. With an estimated net worth of $16 million, built from an extraordinarily prolific career, his legacy is one of endurance, never the star at the center, yet always impossible to forget. Nedra Volz as Pearl Sperling. Nedra Volz was born on June 18, 1908, in Montrose, Iowa, United States. At 73 years old, she played Pearl Sperling, the tough, sharp-tongued bail bondswoman in The Fall Guy, 1981. Her character injected humor and grit, proving age itself could become a weapon on screen. That late confidence rose from early hardship. Growing up during the Great Depression, Volz learned survival before comfort, working from a young age as money stayed scarce. She entered entertainment through radio and music long before television noticed her. Decades later, that endurance surfaced in her comic authority on shows like Different Strokes and The Dukes of Hazzard. Marriage provided stability while fame arrived unusually late. Volz married Lester Volz in 1926, and the couple raised 3 children before his death ended the marriage. Family life remained central, even as her acting career ignited after 65, a rare reversal in Hollywood timing. Success did not soften the strain of age. Working long hours in sitcoms during her 70s demanded stamina few expected, yet she continued appearing weekly on television. Roles in films like 10 and later Moving Violations showcased her physical commitment, even performing stunts well into her 80s. The body endured as long as determination allowed. Sadly, she passed away on January 20, 2003, in Mesa, Arizona, at 94 years old, due to complications from Alzheimer's disease. With an estimated net worth of $1 million, her legacy was built not on youth, but on resilience. Robert Donner as Edmund Trench. Robert Donner was born on April 27, 1931, in New York City, United States. At 52 years old, he played Edmund Trench, a rough-edged, intimidating presence, in The Fall Guy, 1983. His performance reinforced the show's darker realism, grounding its action in genuine menace. That edge came from instability early on. Raised across multiple states during the lingering effects of the Depression, Donner grew up without permanence. Military service in the U.S. Navy added discipline, but also delayed artistic direction. When he finally turned to acting, urgency replaced hesitation. Career recognition arrived without security. Donner appeared in more than 100 roles, often as hardened men on the margins, rarely the lead. Films like Cool Hand Luke and High Plains Drifter gave him credibility, while television roles on The Waltons and Adam 12 kept him visible. His memorable turn as Exidor on Mork and Mindy showed his comic brilliance. Marriage brought personal grounding. Donner married producer Jill Sherman in 1982, finding stability as professional, demands continued. Work remained steady but physically taxing, especially as age advanced and roles required intensity rather than ease. Acting stayed constant, even as the body slowed. Robert Donner died on June 8, 2006 in Los Angeles, California, at 75 years old from a heart attack. With an estimated net worth of $1 million, his legacy rests in the faces audiences remember, even when they forget the names. Doug McClure as Sheriff Dixon. Doug McClure was born on May 11, 1935 in Glendale, California, United States. At 46 years old, he played Sheriff Dixon, the seasoned lawman standing between order and chaos, in The Fall Guy, 1981. His presence added old-school authority, grounding the series in classic Western grit. That authority was built during years of stability that later became a burden. Raised in a supportive environment, McClure entered Hollywood with confidence, but success arrived in a narrow frame. His defining role as Trampas in The Virginian made him a household name, yet it also locked him into the cowboy image. As the industry changed, opportunity narrowed instead of expanding. Marriage unfolded alongside mounting pressure. McClure married 5 times, with repeated divorces reflecting the strain of constant work, travel, and expectation. While his career remained busy with films like Shenandoah and television leads through the 1970s, personal stability proved elusive. Health ultimately ended the fight. Years of heavy smoking led to lung cancer that spread rapidly. In early 1995, McClure collapsed on set while filming in Hawaii and was rushed back to Los Angeles, where doctors confirmed the disease had reached his liver and bones. Momentum stopped almost overnight. Finally, he passed away on February 5, 1995, in Sherman Oaks, California, at 59 years old due to lung cancer. His final public honor came just months earlier with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. With an estimated net worth of $2 million, his legacy remains tied to endurance, carrying one image across decades until the body could no longer keep pace. Red West, as Ace Martin. Red West was born on March 8, 1936, in Memphis, Tennessee, United States. At 46 years old, he played Ace Martin, a hard-edged enforcer with street authority, in The Fall Guy, 1982. His authenticity strengthened the show's danger, drawn from a life lived close to real violence rather than performance. That edge came from poverty and survival. Raised in public housing in Memphis, West learned toughness early and gravitated toward boxing, football, and discipline. Friendship with Elvis Presley altered his path, pulling him into a world of fame from the inside. Before acting, he became a protector, driver, and fixer, absorbing loyalty and risk as daily currency. Marriage provided one constant: West married Pat Boyd in 1961, and the relationship endured decades of instability tied to Elvis's orbit. While guarding Presley, West also wrote music, co-authoring songs like If I Can Dream, which cemented his creative identity beyond muscle. Acting followed naturally, with appearances in films and television. The body paid for years of intensity. Hard living, physical strain, and constant stress weakened his health as age advanced. Though he continued working into his 70s, including roles in films like Roadhouse, the damage accumulated quietly. Red West died on July 18, 2017, in Memphis, Tennessee, at 81 years old, from an aortic aneurysm. With an estimated net worth of $1 million, his life closed not as a footnote, but as a witness, standing beside legends while building a legacy of his own. Sid Haig as Mr. Fick. Sid Haig was born on July 14, 1939, in Fresno, California, United States. At 42 years old, he played Mr. Fick, a shady, unsettling figure on the fringes of the stunt world, in The Fall Guy, 1981. Though brief, his presence added grit and unpredictability, hinting at the darker edges beneath the show's glossy action. That darkness began forming early. Pushed toward performance as a child, Haig entered entertainment before stability ever arrived. Music, dance, and stage work filled his youth, but constant pressure to perform created restlessness rather than comfort. Long before horror fame, he learned how to weaponize discomfort, a trait that later surfaced in films like THX 138 and Spider Baby. Marriage arrived late, after decades of creative turbulence. In 2007, Haig married Susan L. Oberg, finding personal calm just as his career reignited. That resurgence came through Rob Zombie's House of 1,000 Corpses and The Devil's Rejects, where Captain Spaulding transformed Haig into a cult icon. The cost arrived suddenly. In 2019, Haig suffered a serious fall at home, followed by severe respiratory complications while hospitalized. Pneumonia and related failures overwhelmed a body already strained by decades of performance. Momentum vanished as quickly as it had returned. Sid Haig died on September 21, 2019, in Thousand Oaks, California, at 80 years old, due to respiratory complications. With an estimated net worth of $1.5 million, his legacy was sealed not by comfort, but by fear, mastered and fully owned. Robert Tessier as Garvey. Robert Tessier was born on June 2, 1934, in Lowell, Massachusetts, United States. At 47 years old, he played Garvey, a brutal, intimidating enforcer, in The Fall Guy, 1981. His raw physical presence injected real menace, blurring the line between actor and threat. That menace came from a life marked by violence and survival. Growing up rough, Tessier became a biker and stunt rider, enduring crashes that scarred his face and body. Military service as a paratrooper hardened him further before Hollywood ever noticed. Career success was narrow but intense. Tessier specialized in villains, appearing in over 40 films where fear was his currency. Roles in The Longest Yard and The Deep made his shaved head and massive frame unforgettable, even when lines were few. He rarely escaped typecasting, but he dominated the space given. Family life ran alongside constant physical strain. Tessier married and raised 6 children while maintaining a career built on danger. Between film work, he crafted furniture by hand, using precision to counterbalance the chaos of screen violence. Work never slowed, even as health quietly declined. Robert Tessier died on October 11, 1990, in Lowell, Massachusetts, at 56 years old, after a battle with cancer. With an estimated net worth of $500,000, his legacy rests in impact, not longevity. Proof that presence alone can define a career. Judith Chapman as Kay Faulkner. Judith Chapman was born on November 15, 1951, in Greenville, South Carolina, United States. At 30 years old, she played Kay Faulkner, a poised yet enigmatic woman tied to the danger orbiting Colt Seavers, in The Fall Guy, 1981. Though not a central figure, the role reinforced the series' mix of glamour and underlying risk. That controlled exterior had roots in a disciplined upbringing. Raised in a military household, Chapman grew up with structure, expectations, and constant relocation shaping her emotional restraint. Acting became her chosen outlet, first through theater training and early screen work, then through demanding soap roles that required speed, memory, and psychological endurance, as seen later in As the World Turns. Marriage arrived alongside career stability. Chapman married Nevin Steinberg, and unlike many in daytime television, her personal life remained steady while her professional world intensified. During this period, she became deeply embedded in long-running soap operas, notably General Hospital and Days of Our Lives. In 2026, Judith Chapman is 75 years old and still active, continuing her work on The Young and the Restless. With an estimated net worth of $3 million built through decades of uninterrupted television work, her legacy is one of endurance, quietly outlasting trends, scandals, and replacements. Jock Mahoney as Wild Dan Wild. Jock Mahoney was born on February 7, 1919, in Chicago, Illinois, United States. At 62 years old, he played Wild Dan Wild, a seasoned, physically imposing figure rooted in real danger, in The Fall Guy, 1981. His presence carried authenticity, the kind that cannot be acted into existence. That authenticity was earned early. Mahoney grew up tough, became a Marine Corps pilot, and later a professional stuntman, doubling for Hollywood's biggest stars. Injury, risk, and discipline shaped him long before fame, setting the foundation for roles that demanded real physical credibility, including The Range Rider and Yancey Derringer. Marriage and family life were complicated. Mahoney married 3 times and raised both biological and stepchildren, balancing domestic responsibility with constant physical risk. During his peak years as Tarzan in Tarzan Goes to India and Tarzan's 3 Challenges, career success came with extreme physical strain and long separations from home. The body eventually pushed back. While filming in harsh conditions overseas, Mahoney suffered serious illness, and in 1973 he experienced a stroke that permanently altered his working capacity. Though he returned to television in smaller roles, including The Fall Guy, the damage lingered. Jock Mahoney died on December 14, 1989, in Bremerton, Washington, at 70 years old, following a second stroke shortly after a car accident. His ashes were scattered in the Pacific Ocean. With an estimated net worth of $1 million, his legacy rests in realism, proof that Hollywood action once depended on bodies that truly absorbed the impact. Looking back at The Fall Guy, 1981, time changed every face, every path, and in some cases, everything we thought we knew about these lives off-screen. Which cast member's journey surprised you the most, and whose story stayed with you long after the credits faded? If this trip down memory lane meant something to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more untold stories behind the shows that shaped an era.